In every small town, there's always a place that seems to hold all the forgotten stories, a local junkyard. For a young boy named Leo, it wasn't a place of rust and decay. It was a treasure trove, a kingdom of possibilities. While other kids were playing video games, Leo was scavenging. His eyes sparkling with a vision only he could see. He wasn't just collecting junk. He was gathering the pieces of a dream that reached for the stars. Leo's room wasn't like other kids'. Instead of posters of pop stars, his walls were covered with complex diagrams of rocket engines and star charts he'd drawn himself. His shelves overflowed with books about astrophysics and engineering, borrowed from the town library. He devoured stories of space exploration, his heroes being astronauts and scientists. His dream was audacious, almost crazy to anyone who heard it. He was going to build his own rocket, and he was going to build it from the discarded remnants of other people's lives. His first component was an old, dented water heater he dragged home on a rusty wagon. To his neighbors, it was an eyesore. To Leo, it was a perfect fuselage. Then came an assortment of scrap metal, pipes from a defunct plumbing supply, and the engine from a lawnmower that had seen better days. His collection grew daily. A discarded satellite dish became his communications array. Old kitchen timers were repurposed for his launch sequence. He spent hours, sometimes late into the night, tinkering in his family's garage, the sound of sawing and welding becoming the soundtrack to his summer. Of course, not everyone understood. What's that boy doing with all that junk? People would whisper. Some kids at school called him Junk Boy or Rocket Man, but the names never fazed him. He was too focused, too driven by the blueprint in his mind. His hands, often smudged with grease and dirt, were the hands of a creator. He learned to weld from watching online tutorials. He taught himself basic coding to program his makeshift guidance system on a second-hand computer. Every challenge was just a puzzle waiting to be solved. A leaky valve? He fashioned a seal from an old bicycle tire. A wiring problem? He'd stay up all night, tracing circuits until he found the solution. His biggest supporter was his grandpa, a retired mechanic who saw the same spark of ingenuity in Leo that he once had. He wouldn't give Leo the answers, but he'd ask the right questions. Have you thought about the fuel-to-air ratio, kiddo? He'd ask, peering over Leo's shoulder. How are you going to manage the thrust? These questions pushed Leo to think deeper, to refine his designs, and to learn not just the how but the why. Together, they were a team, bridging the gap between generations with a shared passion for making things work. Months turned into a year, and the pile of junk in the garage slowly transformed. It began to take shape, resembling something straight out of a classic sci-fi movie. It was quirky, asymmetrical, and covered in mismatched parts, but it was undeniably a rocket. It stood 12 feet tall, a testament to a boy's relentless determination. Leo painted it a brilliant silver, and on the side, in bold red letters, he stenciled its name, the Stardust. It was a patchwork marvel, a beautiful mosaic of discarded dreams, now repurposed for a new, celestial one. The day of the launch arrived. Leo and his grandpa towed the Stardust to a clearing in an old farmer's field, far from any houses. A small crowd had gathered, curious neighbors, a few of his more supportive classmates, and his family. There was a buzz of anticipation, a mix of skepticism and hope. Leo stood before his control panel, a jumble of switches and buttons wired to a car battery. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it, the culmination of countless hours of every cut, burn, and frustration. He went through his pre-flight checklist, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. Guidance system, check. Fuel pump, check. Ignition sequence armed. He looked at his grandpa, who gave him a confident nod. With a final, determined look at his creation, Leo flipped the final switch. For a moment, nothing happened. A few people in the crowd shifted nervously. But then, a low rumble started, growing into a deafening roar as a repurposed lawnmower engine sputtered to life. Smoke and flames billowed from the base of the rocket. And then, it happened. The stardust lifted off the ground. It wasn't a graceful, soaring ascent like the rockets on TV. It wobbled, it shook, it sputtered, but it was flying. It climbed higher and higher, a silver streak against the blue sky. It went up a few hundred feet, then 1,000, before its engine cut out exactly as planned. A small parachute, sewn by Leo from an old tent, deployed perfectly, and the rocket began its slow, gentle descent back to Earth. The field erupted in cheers and applause. Leo stood there, watching his creation drift back down, a huge grin spreading across his face. He hadn't reached space, not even close. But that wasn't the point. He had proven that with enough curiosity, passion, and a whole lot of hard work, you can make the impossible possible. He had taken the forgotten and the thrown away and turned it into a vessel of hope. He wasn't Junk Boy anymore. He was a boy who built a rocket. The boy who showed everyone that your dreams are never too big, as long as you're willing to build them, piece by piece. That day, Leo didn't just launch a rocket. He launched a new belief in himself and inspired a whole town. He showed us all that the greatest treasures aren't always the shiniest ones, and that sometimes, to reach for the stars, you just have to start with a little bit of junk. Thanks so much for watching this story with me. If you felt inspired, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that celebrates the power of dreams. See you in the next one.